Hi, my name is Will Pemble. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo. She has over 20 years of experience in chiropractic medicine and nutrition, and for the last several years she's been coaching and training and counseling people on digestive health, hormonal health, and using foods that you can find in a regular grocery store to feed yourself and your family and really get the most possible energy out of every day and out of every bit of your life, and to help the people around you as well. So without anything further, I'll introduce Dr. Ritamarie.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you, Will. Okay, well, that was a great introduction, and I am here at the last minute. I was filling in for someone who was supposed to speak about the yoga of digestion, and I'm going to do my best to address that. The yoga of eating, I believe, and I would love to expand on the whole concept of eating. We're all here at a Vibrant Health Expo, learning a lot about raw foods and digestion and how to be as healthy as you possibly can. But the thing is that I notice is that lots of times we focus so much on what we're eating that we don't focus on the situation and the environment and how we're eating. Let me give you an example. You're running around like crazy, and you're taking your kids to classes, and you've got work to do, and you've got all these deadlines, and you realize, oh my God, I'm hungry. And you sit down, and maybe you have this absolutely perfect meal, and it's got fruits and veggies, and everything's well combined, and you sit down, and you just like shovel it into your mouth, and then move on. That's not the ideal way to eat, because as good as the food that goes in is, when it doesn't get into the cells the way it's supposed to, it's not going to nourish you. So the reason that eating on the run like that is bad for you is because you're in what's called a nervous system state that's called the sympathetic nervous system. And what you really need to be in is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is calm and easy. And when you're in this nice, calm, and easy state, the food goes in and the digestive enzymes just get released, and you've got all the places, the sphincters that go from one part of the digestive tract to another, they're nice and relaxed, and you can get the food where it needs to go. So let me give you a little idea of where we can go with this. The title of this talk was The Yoga of Eating. And for those who have just walked in a little bit late, I just want to let you know, my name is Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo. I am not the person that was intended to be, that was scheduled to be teaching this class. I was asked just a couple of hours ago to fill in. So I'm not sure what the content was intended to be in the yoga of eating, but I'm going to give you what my experience is about that. One of the things I teach people before you get started eating is not to just sit down and shovel the food in. It's to sit down and take a break, take a nice big deep breath. Similar to if you're in a yoga class where you're asked to go from your diaphragm, fill up your abdomen. What that does is it takes you from the state of stress, running around, doing all the things you have to do with your kids on your job, to a state of internal peace and tranquility. The other piece that's really important is appreciation. And the custom that is very popular of saying grace is actually a very good process from the standpoint of science and from the standpoint of physiology. Because what has been found is that the state of appreciation is the most effective way to get your body from this stressed out state into this very relaxed, calm state. And it's from that calm state that you digest your food better. You think more clearly, because when you're in what's called the sympathetic nervous system dominant state, your brain, your higher level thinking process actually shuts down. Because when you're in that sympathetic dominant state, the intent of that is fight or flight, right? To get away from a predator, right? And to fight, to basically, your life is threatened when you're in that state. That your adrenal glands, which sit back here on top of your kidneys, they have one purpose and one purpose alone, and it's to protect you in the state, where you're being threatened, when you're under stress. The unfortunate thing is that we as a people, in our Western culture, we're being chased by tigers 24/7. Does anybody ever feel like they've been chased by a tiger 24/7? Right? It's like it doesn't turn off. Like in the olden days of being out in the wilderness, you've got, a tiger comes and starts to chase you, and you go, ah! Drop the apple, whatever you're eating, and you run, and you climb up a tree, and all of your blood gets sent to your extremities, and your muscles get really strong, your heart starts to race, your blood pressure goes up, and all of that is intended for you to survive, for you to get away from the tiger. And you get to the tree, you run up, the tiger goes away, you come down, and then, take a deep breath, everything's great again, right? And then you can pick up your apple and continue to eat it. But we've lost that ability. We've lost that ability because we've got, the alarm clock ringing, and the kids have to get off to school, and the deadline at work, and what's new in the news today, and all these things that happen that put us in this sympathetic, dominant state. And
I read in the newspaper, President Obama is going to take away guns.
That sounds like a great idea. That might let people be much more relaxed and calm. So with digestion, okay, which is what we're talking about, eating, the yoga of eating would be to get in and take some deep breaths. And get in a state of appreciation. Like really look at the colors that you have in front of you and really feel grateful and blessed that you have this food to eat. And then to eat it slowly, not reading the newspaper or watching the news. That's one of the worst things that you can do while you're eating is to read the newspaper or watch the news. Anybody get it? Yeah. Who does that? Okay. You want to improve your digestion. You want to improve your health. Just take a week fast from doing that. Okay? And when you sit down to eat, you sit down and you eat. You take your deep breaths before. You probably have to continue to do it throughout because your brain will start to go, oh, what am I going to do after I eat? What am I going to do after I eat? And then you take some more deep breaths and you keep yourself in that state. When you're in that state, that's called the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay? Your digestion works beautifully. It's the only state that it can work in. That's what people fail to see. Your digestion shuts down when you're stressed out. It's a protective mechanism. It has to shut down, right? Because if you're running away from a tiger and you stop and go, oh, let me stop and eat an apple, you're not just eating a meal. You are a meal, right? So it's a protective mechanism. Okay? So let me give you a little bit about digestion and how important that is for your health, and how important not just what you eat, but how you eat it is important. And then how, if you want to have energy, who here likes energy? Who here likes to have lots of energy? Does anybody here feel tired after they eat? Anybody ever feel tired after they eat? Sometimes. You really should be energized after you eat. Okay, so if you're feeling tired after you eat, either you're eating the wrong foods for you, and the food is really heavy and hard to digest, and it's just not doing anything for you, or you're eating really good foods, but not in the right state. Okay, so you can change both of these things. Okay, who here would like to change that? Fantastic. Who here would like to optimize every bit of food that goes in their mouth and make it go to their cells and give them energy? Yes?
May I ask you a question?
You may.
Real quick. Are you taking Paul Turner's place?
Yes.
Oh, Paul's not here?
Yeah, she's supposed to be teaching this. He?
He.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Paul didn't come.
They didn't show up. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I didn't know if it was a he or a she. I couldn't tell. It was a kind of unusual name.
Yeah.
But thank you for clarifying
Well, that's
that.
his given name. Paul Turner is his name.
Paul Turner. Okay. Well, whatever it was P-Y.
Right.
Yeah, Priya. Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So he didn't show up, and I was asked a few hours ago to step in.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So just like, okay, the yoga of eating. What do I know
You're
about
the
the yoga
yoga
of
teacher?
eating? I am not a yoga teacher. I'll repeat my bio for those of you, because most of you walked in late from Brian Clements. Do you want me to start all over again?
So we can get this guy clued in on what's really going on here.
My name is Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo. I have been involved in raw foods and health for about almost 25 years. And I got involved in raw foods and health because of health challenges of my own, one of which was digestion issues, and another was just fatigue, chronic fatigue. I fueled myself on sugar and caffeine for most of my life, starting from when I was about 10 years old. And it caught up to me when I was in my 20s, so I started searching. And what I found after going through lots of medical kind of intervention stuff was that the thing that healed me was raw fasting and raw foods and managing my stress and learning how to manage my stress. And so as a result of that, it was just a wonderful experience for me. I decided that somebody had to share this. Like 25 years ago, there weren't these festivals, right? There wasn't a whole array of raw foods books or books about health and healing. There was stuff by Victoris. There was stuff by Ann Wigmore. And that's, that's some natural hygiene. Herbert Shelton, and that's about it. So I got started with Herbert Shelton and read Fasting Can Save Your Life. Realized that my problems had nothing to do with an ulcer or, some sinus thing that needed drugs. It wasn't a cortisone deficiency. It wasn't a Prilosec deficiency, right? I was toxic. The peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, the grilled cheese, the Pringles, the ice cream, the Kool-Aid. That was most of the fuel, the food that served me most of my life up till I was 25 years old. That was what was causing me. And when I asked that question of the medical community and I said, you know what, I have the worst diet in the world. I know diet has something to do with it. Could that be causing all my problems? I mean, I've got burning in my stomach every time I eat. Could that be related to what I'm eating? And you know what they said? No! And I was a smart person. I was valedictorian of my high school class. I was always questioning and thinking. And I said, well, that doesn't seem right. I mean, especially, maybe the sinuses don't have anything to do with this, but the stomach, it's like directly a relationship. And they said, no, just drink milk because it coats your stomach and take these drugs for ulcers, even though you don't have an ulcer. That was what we tested you. Well, you don't have an ulcer, take this ulcer medication. And I went, excuse me? So my logical brain said, no, there's got to be a better way. And I just started searching for answers. And one day I was sitting in a gas station reading yet another of my books on health, trying to figure this all out. And a guy came over to me and he said, let me talk to you about this. He said, here's a book you should read, Fasting Can Save Your Life by Herbert Shelton. And here's this place that you can go to. And it was a retreat center that took people in and did fasting. And I'm like, fasting? How could that help me? And I did it. I did a 28-day water fast, 28 days on water alone. And I was like a new person, I didn't need the caffeine anymore or the sugar anymore. I never thought I was tired because I was always on caffeine and sugar. And I never considered myself a tired person. I always had the energy I have now, but it was on, 6 or 8 cups of tea and, not coffee. I never drank coffee, Coke and, sugar. And, just didn't, that was it. And when I realized that I didn't have any of that, and now I could sleep 3 or 4 hours a night, right? And I'm in my 50s and I can run marathons and triathlons, and it made a world of difference. So who here believes that what you put in your body, what you eat, has something to do with your health? Raise your hand. Okay. Does anybody disagree with that? You wouldn't be here. It wasn't like you came because your husband dragged you here and said, you've got to listen to this. No. So we're all on the same page with that. Who here is completely clear on what the perfect diet is for every person in the human race? After this weekend, everything should be perfectly clear, right? Anybody? Yeah? Good. Perfect. But there's a lot of disagreement and a lot of, well, how much fruit and how much green and how much nut and seed, and should we have nuts or seed at all? And is this a poison? Is that a poison? And right? It's a little confusing, right? One of the first things that you could do, regardless of where you're starting from and what you're putting in your body, is to optimize your digestion by eating in the right state. Okay? So does everybody know how to breathe? Who here does yoga? Oh, good. So you really know how to breathe. Okay? Those of you who do yoga, you know that you breathe from deep in the abdomen, you fill up your lungs. And when you do it, the breath the right way, you feel like, wow, Whew, feel so much better. So let's go ahead and let's just breathe, okay? Now this is what I would like you to do before every meal, right? When you sit down at the table, you don't just go hungry. You do this first. 30 seconds is all it takes, okay? So take a nice deep breath in. And a big breath out. And as you breathe out, you're just letting all the tension go. And as you breathe in, just envision that beautiful food that's sitting on your plate being broken down perfectly by your body into all its little nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, fatty acids, enzymes, water, oxygen, all those things that are in that food. And they're being broken down perfectly and distributed perfectly to all the cells in your body. And then open your eyes and look at the food on your plate. And then just eat it with reverence and with appreciation. Slowly and chew it completely. One of the things I thought about yesterday was that there's so many great medical interventions, right? We can cut part of your stomach out so that you don't eat so much, and you can cut out any organ you want. You can transplant it from a baboon to you know, there's so many things you can do, right? Nobody's invented teeth for the stomach yet. Does anybody know of that? Is anybody working on that? Like, wouldn't that be really useful, right? So that when you really are in a hurry and it just goes shoveled down and these big pieces land in your stomach, instead of it causing indigestion, instead of that food sitting there and rotting and not going anywhere, no matter how good it is, wouldn't it be nice if there were a set of teeth in there? Well, they're not. They're here. It's the only teeth you have in your body. Use them to really thoroughly chew that food so that it's liquid, so that it's like a green smoothie or a smoothie of soup, a blended soup. That's what your food should be like when it goes down there. And then your stomach doesn't have to work so hard, right? Okay. So after my whole ordeal, you know, with the medical profession, I decided, and I went and did this 28-day fast, completely turned my life around. I decided other people have to hear about this. So I quit my job in the computer field, and I went back to school, and I studied and studied and studied and studied and studied, and I got my degrees in chiropractic and nutrition and acupuncture and herbal medicine. And I decided, okay, I'm going to teach this to people. And so I've been doing that for about, I don't know, 17, 18 years now. I got out of school in 1991. And for a long time I was doing it privately with people. You know, people come to the office and they think they're coming for a little back adjustment, and the next thing you know, they're changing their diet and they're eating more raw foods and they're learning all the value of all this stuff. So it was really cool. It kind of like my little cover. You know, people come in and it was great. But I'm not reaching enough people that way. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, about 3 years ago, I decided I'd teach these raw foods classes. You know, I'd just get people in, and oh my God, I was shocked at how many people were interested in raw foods. And they'd come in and they'd learn how to make this and they'd get to taste it. Because before that, I'd hand them a recipe and I'd say, this is great stuff, you got to make it. And they go, yeah, great, okay, sure, you know. How'd you do with that? It looks kind of complicated, I'm not really sure what to do, and, you know. So I started teaching classes, and amazing, you know, I just was reaching hundreds of people in the area instead of just, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time, you know. And so I've expanded that, and I've got, you know, some online programs and things like that. So I'm really excited about it. So I reach more people. But still, the message needs to be out there, you know, that it's not just what you eat, it's how you eat it. Okay? So, it's drritamarie.com. drritamarie.com. Okay. I have some cards in my bag back there. I need to bring them out. Yes. No. So, okay. So, let me just give you a little rundown on digestion. Does anybody fully understand how your digestion works? I'd really like you to understand how that works. So, what you put in your mouth goes through. So the first thing is it goes through your esophagus, right? The food goes down. It goes into your stomach, right? And in your stomach is where, this is the second part of where digestion starts. Digestion, as we said before, I just want to make this really clear. Digestion does not begin in your digestive tract. It begins here and here, in your heart in your mind. You have to be in that state. So once it's there and it actually gets in you, you've chewed it, right? It's important to chew real well, mostly when you're eating starchy food, also to begin the chemical digestion. Because if you're eating anything starchy, salivary amylase gets produced in the mouth. So you want to keep that food in your mouth as long as you can so that it gets the digestion. This is, if you're eating raw foods, you're not eating starches with, you don't have to worry about that. But when you're eating, not everybody's going to be eating 100% raw foods all the time. So you want to be eating that food. You want to chew it really, really well. So the salivary amylase gets to give it that head start. If it just goes in and then down, the rest of your tract has to do all that digestion, and it's harder. It gets into your stomach, right? And in your stomach, if you have enough stomach acid, okay, that gets to start the breakdown of your proteins. It also gets to start the breakdown of the minerals, extraction of the minerals out of the food. Now here's the deal. So many people who are having burning pains and indigestion are told you have too much stomach acid. Right? A couple of people are nodding. In fact, it's just the opposite usually. You have too little stomach acid. Okay? If you're 20 years old and you have that kind of thing going on, chances are good maybe you do have too much stomach acid. But if you're 40 or older, it's unlikely because our stomach acid production decreases as we age. If you don't have enough stomach acid, you can't digest you don't get the proteins out of the food. So who here has ever heard? Who's been on raw foods for a long time? Anybody? Oh, you guys are new. Okay. So what was the first question you asked when somebody says, try this, raw food's vegan, you're not going to eat meat anymore. Try this. What was one of the first questions?
Oh, questions?
Yeah, what was one of the first questions you might have asked? Where do you get your protein? Where do you get your protein? Right? Because so many people are like, oh, you're malnourished. These vegans, vegetarians, they're all undernourished. They don't get enough protein. I'm here to tell you that it's not how much protein you get. It's how much you digest and absorb. Right? You need very little. When you calculate up how many amino acids and how much protein you actually need, it's like 15 grams maybe. That's assuming that all those 15 grams go in and get where it needs to go. The problem is not that you're not getting enough protein. The problem is you're not digesting enough protein or absorbing enough protein. All right? And you only do that if you've got enzymes. So in the raw foods, the foods contain the enzymes. Or you take a digestive enzyme. If you're eating cooked food, anybody eats cooked food? Who eats cooked food sometimes? Okay. Always, always, always take a digestive enzyme with it. Because that's been stripped out. When you heat the food above 118 degrees, those enzymes get destroyed. Right? And if they get destroyed, then you're putting this good protein in your body. But your body's got to work really, really hard, and then it gets tired and it can't do that anymore. And so you don't digest your protein or your starch or your fat, and it leads to those feelings of like, what did I just do and why did I just eat that? So even if you're not having digestive difficulties, if you're eating cooked food, you're not getting the full nutrition out of it unless you add the digestive enzymes back. So that's one thing that's going to do. So, excuse me. Where was I? Okay, so the stomach. Really important. Who's heard of calcium, magnesium, zinc, those things? Everybody? You know what those are. Those are important. They're minerals that are really important for your structure, your muscles, and your immune system. And there are all kinds of functions. Your reproductive function, creating energy. All those minerals are really important. If you don't have enough stomach acid, that doesn't get in there, right? If you're eating on the run and your stomach acid production goes down and your digestive enzymes go down because you're in this sympathetic state like we talked about, you're not getting all the minerals out of your food. So, simple things. Okay? You improve. You know how you improve? The best way to improve your stomach acid? Green leafy vegetables. Chewed up really well or blended into a smoothie. Green leafy vegetables have the potential for improving stomach acid, like dramatically, and improving your digestion. You're shaking your head. Okay? There was a study done by Victoria Butenko with a medical doctor, and they said, okay, you measure all your patients' stomach acid, and we're going to put these guys on no changes other than they drink a quart of green smoothie a day for a month, and then you go back and remeasure it. Sure enough, all these people, their stomach acid production was improved significantly. Plus, some of them were getting decreases in their blood pressure medication, their blood sugars were getting under control by this one simple change of drinking a green smoothie. Why? Because all of that nutrition was actually getting into their cells. It was actually getting to where it needed to go, right?
I understand that, and that's great, that eating green leafy vegetables increases your digestive acid, the hydrochloric acid.
Right.
But how does it do it? Do you know?
By providing the raw materials that you need to be able to provide that. So if you're blending those green leafies, right, you're breaking down the cell walls. You're not worried about, you're not relying on your teeth for breaking it down. So you're getting all those vital minerals and nutrients in there. So it's like this vicious cycle. You need zinc to be able to create hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes. The problem is if you don't have enough hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes, you can't absorb the zinc from your food. So when you take that food and you make it in either a green juice or a blended way, you're actually breaking the cell walls open, so you actually get that zinc, which jump starts it. It's a great question, right? So it's like you're jump starting the mechanism so that then you can do all the function, right? So it's real important. So then your food goes from your stomach, it goes into your small intestine, right? And when it's in the small intestine, it's very acidic in your stomach. And when it goes into the small intestine, the beginning part, it needs to be very alkaline there. So then you need the mechanisms in place to neutralize that. Well, where does that get neutralized? Well, the gallbladder is a big important part of that because it shoots out the, what's the name of it? Not the bile, that's for digesting fat, but it's the bicarbonate. So, yeah, bicarbonate to neutralize the acid. Your gallbladder is responsible for that. So is anybody missing their gallbladder in here? Or know anybody that's missing their gallbladder? It's very common surgery, right? Oh, yeah, you got a gallstone, take it out. You don't need it. And just be careful about your fat. Well, they don't tell them. Also, you need to be careful about your starch digestion. So if you've had your gallbladder removed, not only do you have to be careful about your fat, you have to be careful about your starch digestion. Because the starch requires a very alkaline environment in the small intestine to be digested. So you go from very acidic in your stomach to alkaline here, but if your gallbladder is removed, it can't concentrate, can't do that. And so the starch isn't going to get very well digested. Okay? So even more reason, if somebody has a gallbladder removed, raw, fresh fruits and vegetables is your best bet because they self-digest, basically, right? Especially if you blend them. And that's why juices, so like juice cleanses. I'm sure you've heard, like Bryant Clement probably talked about it, and Victoris has talked about it. So many people here have talked about juice. Thomas Lodi talked about it. Juice cleanses, right? Green juices. And you see miraculous changes with that, right? You see people with cancers have those go into remissions. You see people with blood sugar problems, they go. Why is that? Well, because those things, regardless of which parts of your body are missing, they're self-digested. You can actually swish green juice around in your mouth and have some of those nutrients be absorbed from under your tongue. It goes into your stomach. It doesn't have to go through the whole digestive tract to get that happening. It just goes into your stomach and it can get absorbed. Those nutrients get right absorbed in there. And that's another reason why the smoothies, because they can get absorbed without having to go through the whole tract. So it's like it jump-starts a sluggish digestion and an impaired digestion and a broken digestion. And that's what happened with my problem. Like all these problems went away in 28 days. It was completely back to normal in 28 days. So anyway, that's what happens in your duodenum. That's the upper part of your small intestine. And then as it goes along, the pancreas secretes those enzymes. Well, hey, if you've just had a raw juice or a raw meal with all those enzymes in it, your pancreas doesn't have to work so hard. And if you're above 40, your pancreas, and you've been on a regular standard American diet, your pancreas is pretty wiped by the time you get there from all the foods you've been eating. And it's not able to make enough enzymes to fully digest that food. So you eat the raw fruits and vegetables, you eat the whole foods that have sprouts and things like that have lots of enzymes in it. Then your pancreas doesn't have to work so hard, and it can actually regenerate. And that's one of the reasons why people have improvements in diabetes when they go on a raw food and vegetable diet or a cleanse, is because that pancreas then gets to regenerate, and the cells in there that produce insulin get to actually work better. So there's a lot, I'm sure, it's hard to absorb all of this in one weekend, but there's so many things that we see as results of people doing either juice cleanses or raw fruits and vegetable diets or whatever, that it may, wow, that's hard to believe. There's science behind all of it. And I could, spend 2 or 3 weeks describing all that science behind it. I just want to give you an overview, right? So these are so the digestion goes there, and then you've got your liver, your gallbladder's then putting out the bile. Somebody mentioned bile. Bile's important for fat digestion. So if you don't have enough bile, did anybody ever find that if they eat fatty foods, they just don't feel as good? They feel kind of sluggish or tired? It's because you've got a sluggish liver and gallbladder, and you're not able to produce enough bile. And your pancreas, too, because it has to produce lipase, which is the fat-digesting enzyme, right? So, okay, so then it goes down, and now nothing's been absorbed yet, except if you've, done like the juices and they're absorbed in the stomach. It goes further down, and in the lower part of the small intestine, everything gets absorbed. There's all these little villi, and it's almost like, like you've heard it said probably that the size, the surface area of the small intestine is like the size of a football field, because it's this tube that's about 22 feet long, very narrow, but it's rolled on itself, because it's got all these little finger-like projections, so it's like this, and you spread it out. So that's the absorptive surface. It just says, wow, that's really important. We want to be able to absorb all this stuff. But what happens, if you're eating on the run a lot, the food that doesn't get digested up here, it's in big chunks. What do you think those big chunks do to that intestine? It kind of rips it up. And if you're eating lots of foods, like if you're allergic, or if you're eating things like gluten, which tend to glue it all up, which is in wheat products, then your digestive, you can't absorb it very well. And then you get things called leaky gut. Who's ever heard of leaky gut? It's where the spaces get wider in there, and now you're allowing toxins, which normally would be filtered out, and you're allowing the big undigested molecules of protein that didn't get absorbed up here. They go in your blood, and you get allergic reactions. So people say, oh, I'm allergic to everything. How am I going to eat that? How am I going to do this? I can't go through my life being allergic to 30 foods. Well, clean up your gut. Cleanse it, detoxify, clean it up, repair it, and then you won't be allergic to the foods anymore. I was allergic to just about everything. And every time I'd go, oh, I'm allergic to this, and I'd stop eating it, and I'd start eating more of something else, then I'd start to be allergic to that. And you hear this all the time. I hear it all the time. All of this stuff contributes to just your energy being like, how much energy can you have if you're not getting this stuff from your food? Your body's working a mile a minute trying to repair itself from all this junk you're putting in there. So that's why fasting and cleansing are really good things to do. Now, everybody's not in a position where you can do like a juice fast or a water fast, but if you can, it's an amazing thing to do because it gives it a complete break. If you have a cut on your arm, right, or your hand, you don't go around and leave it open and stick your hand in dirty dishwater. Do you? Does anybody ever? You protect it, right? You cover it up. Because if you don't, it doesn't heal. Right? So you give it a rest. If you have a broken bone, you put it in a sling, and you don't use it for 6 weeks. Because the body can repair itself. It can repair its digestive tract. It can repair the liver. It can repair everything. But you have to give it a rest. You have to give it a rest. And getting back to where we started with the whole yoga piece of it, that's an important part, because if you do these cleansing things and then you start eating, but you're still eating on the run, and you're still eating in front of the TV while they tell you about all the murders that are going on and the financial the food is just going to sit there and rot. And then those big pieces are going to rip a hole in the lower part of your intestine, just as if you've eaten gluten or had some alcohol or some other things that are damaging, right? So it's real important, this breathing piece. When you go into that state, you also make better choices about what you're going to eat. Because when you're in that state, you're more in touch with what's really important to me, right? What's important to me is being vibrant and strong and able to just not be stopped by my body. Not to have to make choices from what I really desire to do, not to make choices from, well, I'm too tired to do that, so I guess I'll just go to bed, or, let's lay on the couch tonight and watch TV because I'm too tired to do anything else. No! When you have that energy, when you fully digest that food and it goes into your cells, you've got this energy. And then what happens? Your hormones start to work properly.
That's my question.
You know, all the endocrine glands are then going, oh, we got all this stuff, and we can heal and we can repair, and wow, your hormones start to balance, right? I went through menopause, and I didn't even know I was going through menopause. You know, it was like, oh, wow, it was just a convenient thing to happen, you know? Save money every month. You know, I didn't know it was, it's like, oh, wow, that's kind of, you know, I never had a hot flash. Why? Because I took care of myself for the 25 years or 20 years, 19 years, whatever it was. Had I continued the path that I was on in my 20s, I probably would have gone through menopause at 39 and been like, you know, miserable. You know, my sisters were. I'm the oldest of 9 children. You know, they've all had miserable menopauses, but I haven't. It's not genetic. Right? It's not genetic, it's environmental. And, you know, I talk about this in a hormone. I'm going to be doing a teleseminar series in September. And we're going to be doing it on balancing hormones. So the adrenal glands are real important. You know, this whole stress thing affects your hormones because the adrenals affect the thyroid, affects the reproductive system, and it's way more complicated to go through in, you know, the next 10 minutes. But, you know, check it out. We're going to do this teleseminar series, and Kevin Gianni's going to be announcing it and doing it through his site. But it's going to be some great information, you know, on how this all works. Because it's real, right? It's real problems. And who wants to go through that? You know, and if you're past menopause, great. It's even more important for longevity, you know, to be really focusing on what you put in your body, right? So take a deep breath. And really appreciate the fact that you got to come here this weekend. How many millions of people in the world just don't even know this stuff, right? We got to get that out there. Because you are in a place where you could be actually just, you have so much gratitude for the fact that somebody's pointing this out to you. And whether you're in your 20s or you're in your 60s, it doesn't matter. You get that information. A lot of people continue, you know, they'll find out, say, oh, I wish I would have learned this sooner. Why did that doctor never tell me that? Let that go, right? Because that's not coming from appreciation. Appreciate that you found it now. Appreciate that you found it now. And do what you can, right? And when you yourself are not perfect, right, and you eat something maybe you don't think you should, appreciate yourself for what you're doing, right? In my coaching program, every Monday I send out, or Friday, one of the days, beginning of the end of the week, I send out an email and I say, what have you done this week that has supported your health? What have you done? Let's celebrate it. What's something you need help with and you want to change? But look at all the positive that you're doing for you. Because you're doing a lot. I mean, you're here, right? You're doing it. Appreciate. Sometimes people come to these things and they see other people that are further along on the path. And they're perfectly, you know, like, oh, I wish I was there. I wish I was there. I am where I am, and I'm so grateful that I'm being opened up to this information. And just be there. And that's, you know, that's where the yoga, I'll tie it all back together. That's where the yoga comes in, right? Because that's what yoga is all about, is being centered and balanced and, you know, just having this spiritual level of looking at things. And that's how you can look at your food. It's nourishment on a cellular level, but it's nourishment for an emotional level and a spiritual level. You know, it's nourishment on all levels. So I'd love to open it up for questions, and I forgot to take that book cover out. Would you be able to do that? It's in the back of my backpack in that little book I put it in. Yeah, questions?
I've been hearing a lot about enzymes.
Yes.
And, I'm wondering about particular enzymes. You know, you can buy all kinds of different products. Do you have any recommendation for them?
Brands. You know, there's so many good brands out there. I would avoid, a lot of the stuff in the health food stores has additives and excipients, and they're also low. I know some of the raw food sites, like Fred Bishi has some enzymes, and I would trust him. And Victoris. You know, people that if you've met people here that you've really resonated with, you know, that you really liked their talk and you really felt like they had it together, check it out and see what they're recommending. Okay, like, you know, Victoris, like, he's been doing this for, like, how long, you know, right? He studied with Ann Wigmore. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. So yeah, stuff like that.
I know this is a big subject, but like my hormones are really messed up right now. So just in a nutshell, what would be a good way to kind of balance your hormones?
Balance your hormones. And they're a mess. Yeah, it is a complicated question.
Yes. So listen to your
The
broadcast
stress,
program.
you know, and the digestion, all that stuff's going to do it. I mean, just, I could say an herb, try Don Quai or try this or that. If you've got a lot of stress in your life, you want to do adrenal adaptogens. If you bring it up here, I'll get it out. Adrenal adaptogens, you know, like licorice and ashwagandha and, you know, things to, you know, and the techniques for balancing your stuff. But there's so much, you know, it's like, I wish there was, you know, I wish there was a magic herb I could tell you, a magic food. There are lots of them, but it's a matter of really looking at what's going on for you and which one's going to work, right? So get the animals under control, and that's going to make a world of difference. Yeah. Anybody else have a question?
Are you still doing triathlons or long endurance races, runs?
I did a mini sprint triathlon, a couple of, and most people wouldn't think it's a short one, but you know, it's 3 hours of exercise. But it's a half a mile swim and a 12-mile bike and then a 3-mile run. And I did one of those just a couple of months ago.
Okay.
I'm planning on doing like a half marathon. I did it earlier in the year.
Okay.
And I haven't done a marathon in about, I did the marathon, it was my goal the year I turned 50, I was going to do my first marathon. I'd done a bunch of halves, and I did it then, but it takes a lot of time.
It takes training.
And it takes training, and the time, you have to go out and, so I haven't been doing them recently.
Well, my question is,
Yeah.
what do you use to get the energy for the long training, or what did you, how was the marathon experience, for instance?
It's an amazing experience, and I was concerned about that and looking for other people who'd done it on a raw diet.
Right.
And I actually found somebody afterwards, but not before. So I just kind of, what makes sense? So beforehand, I did greens. I did lots of greens. I did greens, blended up greens, like a green juice kind of, not juice, but more of a smoothie, but really thinned out so that it wasn't sitting too heavy. I did some grapefruit juice. I thought, and diluted, because grapefruit juice, for me personally, I always found that if I'm doing a fast or a juice cleanse the third day, I'm like wiped the very beginning. If I have like 8 ounces of grapefruit juice fresh squeezed, I'm done. Okay. So I always know that the third day I have to do some grapefruit juice. So I figured, well, if it works then, it would work before a marathon. I did that. I kept some in a flask, and I did that at about 18 miles.
Okay.
And
And you felt
I felt really good, and afterwards I had a banana and a bunch more greens.
okay.
You know, and there's fueling kind of things you need. You know, I think I did.
Some of those, or?
I think I did like blended up dates, like a date paste. I wasn't sure if I was going to need it, so I stuck it in a flask. I thought, you know, everybody says at 20 miles you go bonkers, but I'd already done a training run of 22 miles where all I had was water. So I thought, well, what the heck? So I did that, and I made it through. I made it through, no problem. Yeah.
I can't quote his name, but runningboard.com.
Brendan Brazier.
Tim Van Orden.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah, I found that afterwards. And Brendan Brazier, who's a world class, yeah,
Tim Van Orden.
and they could give you some good stuff.
Okay.
So anyway,
You know Brandon Fraser?
Brendan Brazier.
You know him?
Yeah, oh yeah, I met him, and yeah, he's a cool guy. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, but he's just a kid. I mean, he's only 34.
Yeah, so I'm in my 50s and I did it, so you can do it, right? So I've got some cards which I can give you. Anybody's interested? I'm doing I'll give you a card because it'll give you a free admission to my teleseminar. It's called 3 Myths About Fatigue That Every Woman Should Know. It's over here. And okay.
Where are you based?
There you go. And I'm in Austin, Texas. I do private consultation. I do group stuff, and I'm happy to talk to you about more. So this is the cover of my book that just got released last week, and it's really starting the day. You know, the first chapter is Green Beginnings, because I'm an advocate of green, as you could tell by just meeting me for less than an hour. Green is like, this is it. This is the color that's the most important in your diet. Everything else is great, the rainbow and all that, but you really have to have lots of greens. And so, the book has some good green recipes and, little granolas and cereals and things like that would start your day. So, all right. And right now you can actually get this, Kevin Gianni's store, it's renegadehealth.com. You can go there and he's got it in his store. So you can get...
renegadehealth.com/breakfast.
/breakfast, thank you. renegadehealth.com/breakfast. Small b. And do we have time for any more questions, or are we, I don't know how these things go. Do we have time for a few more questions? 5 minutes? Okay, so we have time for 5 more minutes of questions. So
You mentioned a digestive enzyme.
yes.
If you're eating badly,
Yeah.
you should take a digestive enzyme.
Absolutely.
Well, what would that be?
What would it be? Well, there's companies out here that would have them.
Probiotics?
No, probiotics are different. Probiotics support the lower down part. That's the bacteria that live down there. The digestive enzymes support up here, and it's actually like amylase, protease, lipase, the actual enzymes that are found in raw foods that the pancreas produces. But you can take them in an enzyme. If you're going to eat badly, just do that. Not to use it as like a crutch, like, I just eat badly, I'll just take my enzymes. It's still not good for you, but it just makes it all that much better.
But I work for a wellness center where they specialize in enzyme supplementation
Great.
nutrition, and it's really important to make sure you're getting plant-based enzymes.
Plant-based,
as opposed to
thank you.
animal-based enzymes. And it is a chiropractic practice as well, and a lot of the testing, they do a lot of soft tissue work, and I went there as a client initially, and the first thing they said was my pancreas was stressed, and it just blew me away, and I just started taking this digestive enzyme called PAN, and it has a combination, very powerful one. I believe it has amylase. I don't even know what's in it, but I don't know all of that formulation, but that's how I started to investigate more about enzymes, and I read, I guess it was Dr. Loomis.
Dr. Howell.
It was Howell or Loomis, I don't remember which, but I started reading books that they had in their library.
Right.
I said, gee, I should eat raw food then. And the universe just brought to me
you
a
got
raw food teacher, and all of a sudden I was
doing raw.
And I transitioned from vegetarian to raw vegan in a month.
That's wonderful. That whole enzyme is that missing connection. And you still do. And that Victorious was saying that the other day, because of everything's being so tampered with, and by the time you get the food. See, the food is got the peak of enzymes when it's first picked. So sprouts are the best thing. You can grow them in your kitchen. You cut them. They're full of life and enzymes. As it gets further from that, they lose. So 5 days apart, it gets picked and it gets shipped to the supermarket in 5 days. You've lost some of the enzymes already, right? And if you put it in the food processor and you process it, you lose a little bit more. If you heat it, you use all of it, right? So people say, oh my God, I'm going to put it in the blender and it's going to lose some of the enzymes. Yeah, it'll lose some of it. Yeah, it'll lose it with dehydration. Yeah, it'll lose it with freezing. It'll completely be destroyed when you heat it. So let's just get as best we can out of it. Now, it's not like if you just steam it and just get it up there, and it may not lose 100%, right, if it's just barely heated. But it's over time, and it's temperature, time and temperature, time and temperature.
And
right?
microwave.
Let's not even go there. Oh, yeah.
That kills it fast.
Well, it kills it fast, but it completely changes the molecular structure. Yeah, it becomes something your human body never saw before. It's like, yeah, no microwave. If you're going to cook, if you're going to cook, which, face it, most of us are going to cook, you want to lightly steam it in a nice stainless steel, or a glass ceramic, kind of pot. And you just bring it up to temperature and you drop it down. You don't leave it in there. You don't bake it at a 350. And
one of the things, I think it was even in Sherry's cookbook, for broccoli, she has, boil the water and then just pour it over the broccoli for 1 minute and then give it a cold bath.
Yeah.
Because I do not like raw broccoli, and I do that. It just gives it that bright color, and it just takes a little bit of that.
And it just takes a little bit of the enzymes down. It doesn't,
It's not hot inside. It's really good.
Well, another trick for raw broccoli, though, is to pour a little salt and you
Yeah,
massage it. It breaks it right down. It's like it's cooked right in front of your eyes. Cold sautéing.
To do what to it?
You just you put some salt and lemon juice on it, and you massage it. And it breaks down the cell walls, and it looks like it's cooked. You could do that with kale and any of your, and it's really a good idea to do because it breaks it down, and it makes it much easier. A little bit of salt, and you just get in there and massage it. Yeah, it bursts the cell wall, and it releases the nutrients. It's pretty incredible. And then, it cooks it, but without destroying the heat, without destroying with heat.
Broccoli is tasteless.
It's tasteless, but it's also not that digestible.
Not.
So when you do this to it, you make it completely digestible. And if you're doing cruciferous, because they are harder to digest, make sure you take digestive enzymes. Not make sure, but make it a habit of. That's a good idea.
So the juicing, though, that would break it down.
Oh yeah, juicing breaks it down. Smoothies break it down. Yeah. Curried broccoli soup I have in my soup recipe book, which will be coming out soon. It's just a delicious way to eat. Broccoli hummus is another recipe I have. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. Broccoli hummus. Instead of chickpeas, you use broccoli.
I use zucchini.
Yeah, you can use broccoli. So just be creative. Like, where can I get these things in?
You know John Mackey's vegan now?
Is he really?
Yeah.
Cool. Whole Foods is, John Mackey's the CEO of Whole Foods. He's from Austin, so where he's at.
Do you go into his flagship store?
I do, but I got kind of annoyed the first time I went in there because they have this beautiful displays of everything, and they have a raw foods bar there, which is lovely.
Right under his office is right above there.
But they also sell lots of crap. I mean, stuff that's not just like the breads. They don't even make an attempt for them to be whole grain. There was only one bread that was 100% whole grain out of the 20, and then some of them had like little bits of whole. So I got, it's like kind of deceiving people. I shouldn't say this online.
And they ship from out of the country some of the fruits and vegetables, and then there's an issue with that.
Yeah, but I love Whole Foods, and I shop there all the time.
I do too.
But they do still. You can't just walk into Whole Foods and say this is healthy stuff and just eat it. You have to be a discriminating consumer wherever you go, whether it's H-E-B, Whole Foods, or McDonald's. Not that you can find anything in McDonald's, but you might be able to. I don't know if they have salad.
Whole Foods is bringing in a lot of local produce.
They do. They're wonderful that way. But anyway, I think we're out of time. I've enjoyed having you here. Thank you all for showing up. And visit my website. We'll hand you a card. And you're welcome. And don't forget to breathe.